Saw the money and got activated. Saw the money and got activated. Saw that money and got activated. I saw that money and got activated. Canada Goose. Keep me wearing my cold city. I got a pole with me. Glock on 450.
Okay, so to catch you guys up to speed on the first gen stuff, you're probably seeing a second clip of this, or possibly you are. There was a couple days that I forgot my GoPro at home, and I wasn't gonna not do anything when I was up here, so we went ahead and proceeded. But we got the harness out of the truck, got pretty much everything stripped off of it as far as looming and tape goes. From this point, I'm just gonna go through diagrams, figure out what gets power and what gets ground, and then kind of map them out to where we can run it to our fuse box. And then we're also going to go through and take out stuff that we don't need. Like, for example, we have the AC compressor plug. This truck will probably not have AC anytime soon. We're just going to go ahead and take it out of the wiring harness. And if we ever need to add it in the future, it shouldn't be that hard. From my understanding, we can actually delete the ECU wiring. Not sure how true that is, but I think that's true. And then I think we can also delete the grid heater wiring, because we deleted the grid heaters on this truck, and it honestly doesn't have any problem starting. For the most part, it sits indoors, so I guess it doesn't get that cold, but we also have a block heater if we ever need it. There's like certain wires we need to fix. I want to go through and ohms test a lot of the wires and make sure that there's no breaks in them, make sure that they're all good, and clean up some of the stuff. Like, I might just try and buy new turn signal housing things, and like clean up some stuff like this. Like, this should be I mean, this is like a heat shrink deal, but it should be like properly done. I'd like to really solder a lot of the joints, so we might pick up a soldering iron and do it that way. But for the most part, I really just want to delete the fusible links, which is this branched off connector. I mean, as you can see, all the wires going to it are just like, you can see these wires were just wrapped around this for power, which is crazy to me. So gonna try and delete this. I want to look up in the diagram what exactly everything is. I don't expect this to be like a super easy process. I'm sure I'm gonna mess a few things up, but I'm looking at it as a learning experience, and in hopes to do everything nice and neat. I'm even considering maybe tucking the harness somehow. I'm wondering if it'll fit up inside the cowl. I don't know if it will or not. I don't know if that's how people delete or kind of tuck them. I'm thinking like if we notch the cowl here and down there, we can tuck the wiring harness up inside the cowl. I don't know, just a thought of mine, but I might consider doing it because it would clean the bay up a little bit. So yeah, I guess we're going to do that. We also need to tear out the dash and get all the gauges out. We'll look up diagrams for all the gauges. Me and a friend wired these gauges up a long time ago, and if I'm being honest, I don't remember how a lot of it got wired up, so I really want to do it myself, so that way I know they're in there the right way and all that. And then I'm considering trying to put them, I think these gauges up here are fine, but this gauge down here is not fine, and we really need to put it somewhere where I can see it a little better. So we're gonna have to ponder on some decisions for that. I'd really like to put it like, if we can somehow make a bracket to where it can be caddy cornered right here, I'd be okay with that. But yeah, I'm not gonna keep talking a bunch. We're gonna get all this stuff tore out and see what we can make happen. Okay, so we've been going through the harness for quite some time. It seems like pretty much everything we're getting rid of. This is all the grid heater stuff. This is the AC compressor plug. This is the other side of the AC compressor plug. I think that's pretty much everything we deleted. We didn't get to anything inside the cab yet. And then we've been ohms testing our turn signal and parking lamp wires, which are these guys. I've been using a diagram that basically says what each pin does here, and then just going through and ohms testing each wire. We've been using this meter all night, and everything was saying that it had a broken connection, and I just thought that was strange. So I got my other meter out, and it turns out this meter just was not reading right. So we'll have to go back through and re-ohms test everything. But we're really trying to figure out why the parking lights weren't working prior to all of this. I have figured out that pretty much all of this stuff here is the ignition switch wiring. So this is all main power stuff. So we'll pretty much just take this and run it straight to a powered portion of the fuse box. And that's really it that we found. That's like, you can see these wires have been like way hot, and you can see that's broken. You can see where someone at some point like soldered these to this piece here. Just a lot of janky stuff going on. That was actually prior to me owning the truck. So we're gonna fix all that stuff up. I did figure out why the tach that we have in the truck isn't working, and that is because we haven't had the computer plugged in, and it turns out that the tach signal actually comes from the computer. Now, I would like to just completely do away with the ECU, but I'm not sure what the ECU uses to get tach signal. So I'm not sure that I really want to even mess with all that. So we'll probably just plug the ECU back in. It's not like it hurts anything to do that. So we'll probably just plug that back in, and that way that should fix our tach signal issue. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it for this evening. I'll see you guys tomorrow, but it'll be a couple seconds for you. Okay, so we just finally got done ohms testing all the wires. The main wires we were having issues with were some time ago the marker light right here, but on the passenger side never worked. I could never figure out why. I always tested power to it, like never had power to it. But I just ohms tested everything and made sure it all was like there was no breaks in the wire or anything. And pretty much everything ties into each other somewhere in the harness. So basically, if the wire is good and everything else works, that means it should have power. So we're gonna just trust that that worked. So your tan wire and your black and yellow wire are for like your marker lights, and you can see where you got a tan wire, black and yellow wire that run down to your parking light as well, so they share the same power source. And then this is your headlight wires. So basically we've went through and picked out everything we don't think we're gonna need. So this is, I believe, the windshield washer tank. That's the other side of the AC compressor. This is all the grid heater stuff. This is the underhood light, and then this is like our evaporator, I think. There's something to do with that. And that's pretty much everything we deleted. So not really a lot, but the biggest bulk of the wiring was the grid heater stuff, obviously. And it did thin out the harness a decent amount. Definitely looks a lot better. So I already went through and kind of sectioned everything up with zip ties. Still have to cut and figure out that stuff. But so what I think we're gonna do is we're gonna take the harness and lay it back in the truck, route it everywhere it's supposed to go, figure out where the harness needs divided out and stuff, so that way we don't like accidentally loom it improperly and then there's a connector that doesn't get ran. And then we're also gonna figure out where we want all of our relays to sit, and basically our fuse box where we want that to sit. And then we're gonna cut all this stuff to length as well, figure out where we want all this stuff to sit, figure out where we want our anteater to sit, get all of that figured out, get all that pretty much set in stone, and then we'll pull the harness back out and loom all of it or tape it all up with this nice like fabric style tape. and then we should be good to go after that. So that's kind of the plan right this second, and I guess we're gonna attempt to get it back in there. Hopefully it's not too much of a pain because we'll have to tear it all back out, but okay, so we got the harness laid out in the engine bay roughly where things need to be. We've kind of messed with stuff over here. I think this is where we're gonna put our fuse box. Kind of, you know, it's overwhelming only because there's so much going on. Like, I know where everything goes and I know what I need to do, but there's a lot going on, so it can be overwhelming a little bit, not gonna lie there. But it looks like all we have to do, we need to pick up, basically the part I'm having trouble with is like, I can't remember where everything needs to go, so I have to like rethink all of it. And if I had all of like the terminals and stuff that I need right now, I could just like do it and then I don't have to remember. So we need to order like a big assortment of like wire and connectors and stuff, because obviously you're going to use like a fork style connector to go inside here. So we need to order a decent size assortment, because like we have like this wire right here, for example, is a 10 gauge wire. You know, so we'll need anything from 10 gauge to all this thinner stuff. And then we also need to get fuses, so we're going to need all those fuses there. We're going to need an assortment of fuses. It looks like we are going to have to run one inline fuse, because basically this right here, this connector it comes right off of your battery terminal deal here, which I want to replace this, but I want this exact one. So I'm going to look up and see if we can still get this exact one. Anyhow, basically it goes to this connector and it's key on power to the starter. And basically if I were to run it to one of these fuses, it would have constant power, and you don't want constant power to the starter, obviously. So we're going to, the starter motor at least, we're going to put an inline fuse in between this red wire and this red wire here. We're going to delete this connector altogether, because if you look, this is pretty trashed here. This, I think, melted at one point. So that's a whole different story. I think we're going to replace it with a little bit higher gauge wire. So we'll have to put an inline fuse there, which I already have the inline fuse sitting around here somewhere. I just had it, but we're going to use that there, and then everything else should be able to just go straight to this terminal block, or this fuse box. We also got the dash, not the dash, but the kind of the trim around the dash. We got that all pulled out. We pretty much pulled out all the wiring stuff that we had ran in there for other things. Like this whole harness I made up when I had the old transmission. I made my own overdrive system to where I could flip it back from being able to shift on its own and being able to shift into overdrive on a switch. So that's a whole harness for that. And then we pulled all this stuff out. This was the push button start that we had in the truck, which it worked good, but there was a few issues that I couldn't quite sort out, and it was kind of becoming more of a headache than it was worth. It was really cool to have a push button start 1992 diesel truck, but I don't think they designed these for diesel trucks. One, what would happen is in the winter when you'd have to cold start this thing, if you pressed and hold on this button, sometimes it would just keep cranking, like it almost like it was so much power that it like overrode this little computer, which your like normal gas car probably wouldn't have that much draw. So that was sketchy. There was a couple times that it's only happened twice, but the 2 times I had to hurry up and jump out of the truck and disconnect the battery because it just kept cranking. So we're gonna do away with that. The other issue was the way I had to jump the ignition. It was, one of the wires was getting hot because it was all running off the blower motor and the window switch. So it was more of a headache than it was worth. Maybe one day, actually we'll probably never put that back in this truck, but we could probably utilize it on something like the hard body or something. I'm kind of over it. Like it's cool, but it's not worth the hassle. So we pulled all of that out. We pulled basically all of the wires that weren't ran through the grommet. I've been getting this cold air on my feet, and I couldn't figure out why. It was because that grommet right there got yanked out years ago, and like I guess I just disregarded that it got yanked out and just kept running wires in. So we pulled all the wires that aren't going through the grommet out. We're gonna run those back through the grommet, put the grommet back in. We've pulled all the gauges out, went through and labeled each gauge. Each wire in here is labeled. Everything that we need is labeled now. So like this right here is fuel pressure sensor. This is the tachometer. This is EGTs. So we went through, labeled everything. This is backup camera. This is backup camera 2. And we zip tied all the factory wiring that we don't need. Like we don't have the heads up, we don't have the display here anymore. So I don't want to cut it out of the harness, but we'll just kind of zip tie it back and off to the side. And then this is all the radio stuff. And then we've got down here trans temp, and I believe this is what is this? Oh, this is for the antenna for the push button start. This is our alternator, that's key on power, and this is our boost sensor, and I think that's it. On then our anteater, where's our anteater power? Oh, right here. Here's our anteater, key on power, and then all this stuff, like literally all of this wiring right here is all cigarette lighters. So this is power to 2 cigarette lighters and then the 2 grounds. I know I should be running color-coded wire. This is just what I happen to have laying around, and I did this quite a while back, but they are labeled ground with 2 black things. I know that's not the proper way to do it, and I know if I ever sold this truck, someone would be really screwed, but good thing I don't ever plan on selling it. So I know that they're the right things. And this, the fuel pressure sensor, and then our subwoofer, or not our sub, our amp power. Our amp power, and then yeah, that's pretty much it. So looking under the dash now is not so overwhelming. Like it's comforting. So I think that's gonna be it for this video. I think we're gonna do this in 2 parts, because if I make this too long of a video, I don't think a lot of people will watch it. So not that a lot of people are gonna watch it anyways, but I'd say we made a decent amount of progress. Now we basically just got to kind of set things up where we need them, and then start running the wires the proper way. So there's a reason why I took everything out, and it's because I basically want to rerun everything, so that I know, you know, this goes here, this goes here, and I'm gonna probably write it all down in like an Excel spreadsheet and have it printed out onto a like laminated piece of paper, and then I'll just keep it inside the truck, so that way if I ever have an issue with something, I can just be like, oh, okay, bang, just go straight down to it. I already know what's what and where it's at. The biggest thing with doing all this is I want to be able to rely on this truck, and like the wiring in this truck is extremely reliable, but I'm pushing my luck, if that makes sense. Like there's going to be a point where it's not reliable, and so I'm trying to prevent that from happening. So yeah, one thing I do want to show you guys though is I have a see if I can pull it up here. I have this diagram that shows you gauge of wire. Here it is. So you have your wire gauge over here, and then the amperage fuse you'll need to run. So for those that are rewiring stuff and it's kind of confusing or something, This basically tells you, you know, what gauge wire versus fuse amperage that you'll need, and that is on this website. So, and then this will also tell you how to measure for amperage. Like, for example, it says here 5mm LED dome light, large, would draw 500 milliamps, and then you would 1 amp is equal to, or 1000 milliamps is equal to 1 amps. Obviously LEDs don't pull a lot of amperage, but basically it shows you how to measure and like add it up. So let's see what it says here. So if you have 2 transformers, all this stuff, and they're 700 milliamps each, you basically add up all of your milliamperage, and then you take your total milliamperage, which is 1800 milliamps, you divide that by 1000, and then you get your amperage. So that would be the fuse you would need to run all of this stuff. I know that sounds confusing, but all this information is on this website here, and it's super duper helpful. And it also, you know, if you're gonna do something with wiring, you wanna do it right. Last thing you wanna do is your truck burns down to the ground, or there's just a lot of things, and wiring is one of those things you really don't want to half-ass on. I've had this truck for a really long time. I've learned with this truck. I've done a lot of things with this truck, so it was really time for me to, with my fresh new skills and things that I know now, to go back and do everything the right way as far as the wiring goes. So yeah guys, I know that was a lot of talking, but I kind of wanted to go in depth a little bit on that stuff, because I know you guys, the wiring stuff can get really intimidating. Like, you look at all this stuff and you're probably thinking like, how in the world would you know what goes back where? And the biggest thing is like taking pictures, and I have pin by pin diagrams for this truck, so if anyone needs those, you can message me on Instagram at StackLikeZach or Maxdout Mafia. You're more than likely going to get a reply from me on Maxdout Mafia, because I don't have a bunch of people messaging me asking me what lift kit I have. So yeah, so I think that's going to be it for this video, guys. I'll see you in the next one. In the next one we'll have all the wiring done, at least we should, and yeah, so I'll see you in the next one. Deuces.